first of all, explain a little bit what's so special about these drills. What are these drills really about?
Well, we can see that actually the pirate activities are happening or occurring in southern part of the Philippines, but there have been not so many pirate activities in the waters close to Vietnam. So there isn't the urgent need for Vietnam to be involved in such kind of activities. But we can see that in recent years, especially since 2012, when China had maritime disputes with the Philippines and also Vietnam, the Japanese government has been trying to provide second-hand patrol ships to these two countries, and also have been conducting joint drills with these two countries. So it is obvious that the Japanese government wants to incite these two countries to make more provocations against China, wants to provoke tensions in this area to fish in the troubled waters.
What are the considerations of countries such as Vietnam and the Philippines in joining Japan in these anti-piracy projects? We know that the Philippines has taken a major step in talking to China about the maritime disputes.
Well, actually, ever since last July, when the so-called award of the South China Sea arbitration was issued, the new president of the Philippines, Mr. Duterte, has declared that it will not follow the United States in the so-called joint patrol in the South China Sea, and also it put aside the award and agreed with China to return to the appropriate way of negotiations to peacefully settle the disputes. Under such circumstances, Japan, as an outsider, still wants to maintain tensions in this area. So it is actually inciting these two countries to continue to make provocations with China.
What about Vietnam? China. What about Vietnam? What would be the consideration of Vietnam on this matter?
Actually, publicly, Vietnam has declared that it will not make provocations against China. But we can see in 2012, it passed the maritime law, which takes China's Nansha Islands and the Xisha Islands as the territories of Vietnam. And actually, sometimes Vietnam is following the United States and Japan in some of its actions in the South China Sea. And it welcomes the United States and Japan in the activities in the South China Sea. So sometimes, actually, Vietnam is taking a double standard in this area.
Well, the situation in the South China Sea has been easing up, as we have said that since Philippine President Duterte took office last year. Also last month, China and ASEAN countries reached the draft framework of the South China Sea Code of Conduct. All of these is kind of not happening in the eyes of Japanese forces and the Japanese government.
Sure. Ever since last July, all the claimants in the South China Sea disputes, including the Philippines and Vietnam, have agreed to return to the way of negotiations. But under such circumstances, Japan did not stop its actions involvement in this region. We remember that after the award was released last year, Japan actually initiated or drafted a joint statement which was endorsed by the United States and Australia, which called for the implementation of the so-called award. So this shows that Japan still wants to keep high tensions in this area.
What is the interest? What is Japan after by doing so in the South China Sea? I mean, Japan is an outsider in the region. It doesn't have any territorial claims in the South China Sea.
We think that the Japanese government actually has its selfish interest, and also it has its ulterior motive behind this kind of actions. First, it wants to increase its influence in this area so as to meddle in the South China Sea issue. And second, it wants to make the South China Sea dispute as an excuse to increase its influence, and also in the future to deploy its military warships and aircraft in this area so as to control the shipping lanes in the South China Sea and also further the Malacca Strait. We can see that in recent years, Japan has been following the United States. It wants to conduct joint patrols in this area, and also the patrol aircraft of the P-3 of the Japanese aircraft, when they finish their missions in the Indian Ocean, last year it wanted its aircraft to make a stopover in Vietnam and to conduct the so-called freedom of navigation operations in this area. So in the future, I think it wants to deploy its forces, military forces, abroad, so as to be ready to initiate a strike against other countries, especially China.
Now, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has been saying that he wants to pursue a non-zero-sum foreign policy, but what he has been doing is obviously not the case.
Sure. It is true that actually the Japanese government has not matched its words with its deeds. On one hand, it has promised to improve relations with China, but on the other hand, it has taken every opportunity to contain China, to use the maritime disputes not only in the South China Sea, but in the East China Sea as a tool to contain China. And it has tried its best to draft some announcements or joint statements to condemn China in these areas, we can see.
Well, we have seen some optimistic or good signs, for instance, when Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced that Japan will be interested in joining China's Belt and Road Initiative under certain conditions, and there's also this expected summit with the Chinese President Xi Jinping next month. How are we supposed to look at China's relationship with Japan while we are seeing all these conflicting signals?
Well, first, I think a good relationship between China and Japan is in the fundamental interest of both countries and the peoples of both countries. And we hope to see that the Japanese government will do what it has promised, not only words, and it should create a good environment for the conference between the heads of these two countries. And we hope to see that the relationship between the two countries can be improved in the future.
Mm-hmm. But given the kind of double standards, let's say, that the Japanese government is adopting, how should China react?
Well, I think in my personal view, I think that first we welcome the Japanese government's gesture, its words that it supports One Belt, One Road initiative. On the other hand, we will see what it will do. Whether it will really support the initiative or make some obstacles to this initiative, we will look and see.
We will take them by their actions instead of what they say. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Zhang Junshe, Senior Research Fellow at the China Naval Research Institute. And here is my first point. Now, with the backing of its strong ally, the United States, Japan has been emboldened to make their presence in the South China Sea and at the same time to get closer to countries in South Asia to balance China's growing influence. If Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is really into a non-zero-sum game strategy where there is no single optimal solution that everyone can accept, then he would understand that China's rise shouldn't pose a threat to Japan. Unfortunately, for both domestic and international reasons, that is not the case. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe made a step in the right direction by opening up towards China's Belt and Road Initiative. But after relationships between the two countries have experienced a long period of coldness, building trust will be essential for ties to really warm up and for any cooperation to properly materialize.